have conviction, if you have a deep conviction to do something, you have absolutely no choice but to do it. Great that there are parts of this experience that come with grief, that cost, and sometimes that cost is family, sometimes that cost is companionship, sometimes that cost is children, sometimes that cost is friendships. Changed, and I can't really pinpoint in which ways. I care about other things. I'm not a power-hungry career woman just chasing all of that irregardless of the cost. And I finally reached a point where I wanted a balance. But now I'm back in my country. And I guess that's the million-dollar question. Why would I come back? And shout out to all the new subscribers. We're getting a goal to 500 subscribers this year for sure. And more and more and more and more. Remember, I'm declaring 2020, I almost said 2014, to 2024, the year of YouTube for me. If you're new here, this channel is all about motherhood, travel, keeping it real, and all the good stuff in between. And for all the returning subscribers, thank you and shout out for sticking around. Yeah, so as some of you already know, I moved back to South Africa. Backstory: I'm a South African lady, 31-year-old lady, mom of two, career woman in search of many things and herself. I was in Germany for 14 months in pursuit of my dreams, and while I was abroad I discovered many other things, but now I'm back in my country, and I guess that's the million-dollar question. Why would I come back? While everyone is trying to leave the country, why would I opt to come back? For those who are not familiar with my journey, I always intended to go and come back. I left the country because I was awarded a fellowship, and I took my children with because the fellowship allowed for such, and it was very accommodating. However, I always knew it was going to be a short-term upskilling opportunity, and I knew when I had taken this opportunity that perhaps my mind would change, and I took all the risks and left the country regardless. Luckily for me, I was able to secure a job and come back to the country. My intention was never to leave the country. I was always going to come back. However, when you leave, there's always that risk. You're honestly unsure whether, when you're on the other side, you might feel more comfortable with the way of life there and then opt to stay. And I very much left South Africa with that awareness that, okay, I'm going for a year and a bit. However, I'm also open to whatever doors may open on the other side. However, my wish is to come back. I've always wanted to come back and pay it forward in my country, but I also have been extremely privileged to have been afforded many opportunities in my life to travel, to be exposed to life outside of South Africa, to really have an understanding of where I'm happiest, regardless of the traveling opportunities that do exist. And so I think that is a mindset shift. So in today's video, I'm just keeping it real about the things that I have learned about myself. Some of it has been quite difficult to come to terms with, and I guess it's the ways in which living abroad has shaped me, both good and bad.
Hello everybody, I'm back.
So as I was saying, I just want to touch on the things that I sort of learned about myself personally that weren't the focus when I left. I left to pursue my career, to grow professionally, but I didn't really think about how living abroad would shape me personally. And I think the most obvious thing for me, and that's one of the big motivators as to why we're currently back in the country, would be that it was incredibly isolating in ways that I could have never imagined. Granted, I was having a baby, I was living there with my daughter, and we were there on our own, so obviously the circumstances are very unique. But yeah, it was a very lonely season, and because of that, it motivated me to come home more than ever, even though that was always going to be the plan, that was always the intention. But I realized that in pursuit of my dreams, in pursuit of my career, in pursuit, in pursuit of all the other things that society, encourages out of us as career women and moms and all the good stuff, is that people clap their hands and pat you on the back for making all those sacrifices, but people don't really talk about the cost, the personal cost. The career was not going to matter without me feeling whole, happy, present, balanced. It also was not going to matter without my family. It was also not going to matter in the long term. I'm one of those people who really believe that my job is an extension of my purpose, and so doing it in a disingenuous way, far away, where I felt, out of balance, not happy, started not to make sense for me. And indeed, 10 years ago, would have had a very different mindset. So I think the gift in living abroad, particularly in this season, is that it really just spotlighted that very much a mom, and 2023 was definitely a season for motherhood for me. I'm very much a mom who enjoys that about herself. It's a part of my personality, my being, that I want to continue to pour into intentionally. And that was spotlighted for me. Even though it was a great milestone year in terms of my career, it was also a year that really highlighted the need for community, the need for pouring into myself as a holistic human being. So that's definitely probably the most important thing and the most important motivator for coming back. But another thing I learned about myself while living abroad was that I'm happiest in South Africa. I truly am happiest here. With all the supposed dysfunction and the things that could be improved. It's no perfect country, but it's my country. It's a country that I want to pour back into. I want to plow back into. It's where I come from. I feel balanced when I'm home. I feel a sense of being when I'm home. And for those who know my journey as a child, or from being a child till now, will know that hasn't always been a clear thing for me. It's always been a conflicting feeling, bearing in mind my childhood and my upbringing and the sort of the strong intercultural aspect of it. It's very easy to assume that wouldn't be the case. But I'm happiest here. I'm happiest in South Africa. I love the vibrance here, the authenticity, the people. There's so much more that I love about being in South Africa than all the other reasons that one could think of as to why I wouldn't want to be here. And that's something I own. With all the traveling opportunities that I know I'll continuously be granted and will continue to lean into and take, and granted I love traveling too, but this is where I'm happiest. This is where I want to raise my children. This is where my family is. This is where most of my peers are. It's where the music is. It's where the food is. It's where dance is. It's where that burning desire to do good is for me. And that was something that I don't think I always really centered in my thoughts. Never really thought of. I think I've always considered myself as this go-getter and I'll make a home of wherever I am. But it became very obvious when we're living abroad that I actually genuinely just want to be home. I want to be rooted. I want to be grounded. That is important to me. It could be somewhere else. It doesn't necessarily have to be home. But for me, it became home. I'm rooted here. This is where I'm happiest. This is where I want to be. And now I get to intentionally decide that with all other opportunities that may come my way, I can decide that no, I want to stay put here and I want to prioritize this and I want to have a certain kind of life and a community, and everything else will be secondary. And I must say, my children are also happiest here. Traveling with our kids, exposing our kids to the world, great. But I do think that children have a sense of where they come from, and everybody has a deep yearning to know where home is. And I think they can sense that they're home. I think we've all been feeling a little bit more balanced since we've been back. So that was definitely something that was highlighted through my experience on a personal level when I was in Germany. Another thing that I realized while living abroad was I've changed as a person. And maybe it's too personal for the platform, but I had to grieve many parts of myself when I was living in Germany. Granted, it was also a very transitionary period, being pregnant, being a mom, sort of pivoting in my career as well in a certain way. But I think I left a big part of who Dee was in 2023 that I just no longer resonate with now that I'm back. And I'm not sure in which ways I would have changed had I not lived in Germany for a year and a bit. Perhaps that change would have been inevitable. But then I think there's something about leaving everything in your comfort zone that triggers certain evolution or growth, whether it's good or bad. And I think for me, I'm still coming to terms with who am I now. I think the essence of who I am still is somewhat here, still exists, but I've been grieving a lot, like really just in my body have a big sense that I've changed, and I can't really pinpoint in which ways. I definitely wasn't prepared for that change. So a big part of also coming back to the country is making my peace with that, making my peace with maybe there are certain parts of my personality that I just no longer resonate with, and I just have to adjust. Luckily for me, I have an incredible community in my friendships and my family, and even in my professional connections and networks, that change hasn't really shifted those relationships, because I think those relationships have always created room for evolution. However, that is something I think if you are considering to leave everything, behind, maybe you need to be prepared for. And maybe that's why people leave. But that wasn't my motivator for leaving. If anything, I didn't put enough thought into that. So I'm still coming to terms with, okay, I took a leap. I was given a unique opportunity to do this and not have to sacrifice, family. But now I'm back and I can feel it in my body. I can feel it in the everyday that something has shifted, and I have to kind of get to know myself again from scratch in a way, which is quite a strange feeling. This may have everything to do with the fact that motherhood happened during this living abroad transition, but it may just be that, the fact that I did leave and uproot and now I've come back, and so I have to reintegrate. So just cautioning for those who glamorize this kind of experience and think it's all rosy and think it's all great, that there are parts of this experience that come with grief, that come with evolution, maybe fast-tracked evolution of yourself, that may be a bit uncomfortable to come to terms with. And I think lastly, one of the things that I've learned while living abroad is that I have no desire to just be a career woman. I desire other things, and I'm not so sure those things were front and center, top of mind for me prior to leaving. I desire companionship, I desire stability, I desire community in proximity. There are so many things that I desire outside of just pursuing my career, e.g. pouring into my purpose, that I just never thought of intentionally before. And this is probably connected to all the other points I've mentioned so far. I think as career women, maybe even career women who are people of color in this generation, a lot of us are walking paths we never knew were imaginable. We are pursuing dreams we never knew were possible. A lot of us are doing things for the first time. We haven't seen it modeled before. A lot of us are sacrificing things we never knew you had to sacrifice because we never saw it. A lot of us didn't have role models or an example for the type of lives that we live. And so there's some lack of preparation for that kind of journey. And I think because of cultural contexts maybe that we come from, and socialization, and navigating all those many worlds together. I think a lot of us have believed one version of the truth, or one version of the pursuit of your career. At a cost, and sometimes that cost is family, sometimes that cost is companionship, sometimes that cost is children, sometimes that cost is friendships. I mean, it could be a lot of things, and I realize that I, as D, desire a balanced life that includes community, family, companionship, and maybe my career is secondary. And that's quite a shift for a person who has prioritized that for most of their life. And that has come with a fair amount of discomfort. But to be honest, I don't know if I would have had this much clarity had I not been sort of yanked out of my comfort zone and lived elsewhere for a bit and had to reflect on these things. So those are the ways in which I've changed. If you're watching this for the first time and are considering to leave everything behind, and your motivator is career, or your motivator is absolutely nothing whatsoever, you just feel a strong pull to leave, I'd say lean into it. If you have conviction, if you have a deep conviction to do something, you have absolutely no choice but to do it. So lean in, but I would encourage you to also reflect on all the personal reasons why an opportunity like this may be beneficial for you. I definitely didn't think about it enough. I think I always knew it would be beneficial either way. I just didn't put enough thought into what are the ways in which I wanted to grow. I think I very much centered how would it benefit my daughter at the time, how would it benefit my career, and I just went. I think for my journey that was probably the best approach, but I would encourage people to reflect on all the personal goals, all the personal reasons why you want to uproot and leave, even if your motivator is in pursuit of better opportunities in terms of your career. So that's me. A little bit more of a personal video this time, and letting you in. But I'm very happy that I made this decision to leave, and I'm also very happy to come back. I think I needed all of it, with all the grief, with all the adjustments, with all the discomforts. It feels so good to be back. But I also feel so blessed to have been afforded this opportunity and the opportunity to walk this particular journey. It's a unique one, and I hope if you're watching, you feel motivated to leap and take all the chances. But yeah, listen to that voice within, your conviction, whatever it's telling you, it's definitely leading you in the right direction. So let me leave it there with all the deep stuff, and catch you next time. I think we'll be talking a little bit more career focused things,